All right, so this is the last part of 13.3, and we will work on another problem like this later today. Okay, so the next one I want to do, it's been a while, but so on today, 4/16/2020, we'll call this one beer voting. You get to vote on your favorite beer. And this is a voting problem, so it's from section 13.1. And here it is. I did give you this one. It says, use each of the 4 voting methods to determine which beer would win a competition. And your 5 beer choices are Killian's, Molson, Sam Adams, Guinness, and Budweiser. All right, so here's what we can do if you prefer to see it this way. These 18 voters here, they ranked Molson number 1. So in the first tier, I'm going to put Molson. And I'm just going to put the M. Then these 18 folks voted Samuel Adams as number 2. So I'm going to put Samuel Adams here. And then these 18 folks, they ranked Budweiser number 3. So I'm going to put B here for Budweiser in the 3rd place. 4th place was Guinness, and 5th place was Killian's. So there's 2 different ways that you can classify these votes. You can put the beer names here and the rankings here, or you can put the rankings here and the beer numbers there. So yeah, Molson is that kind of, you either voted as your favorite or you voted as your least favorite. So just these 18 voted it as their top choice, and the rest of the votes voted it as their last choice. So Molson's not going to fare well unless it's just the plurality. And you can see something similar here, but all these Molsons are down here in the rated 5th. Yeah, so for board account, since there are 5 candidates, you're going to award 5 points for each of the first place votes, and then 4, and then 3, and 2, and 1. The last place, the last ranked beer or candidate will always receive 1 point. So we'll go from 5 down to 1. And so the way that you can say what a majority is how many votes would you get so that nobody could beat you? You know, you're not going to get half votes. You got to get a whole vote. That would be a majority. 50% plus 1. Well, 50% would be 27.5. If you add 1 to that, you get 28.5. But the only time that you use 50% plus 1 is if the number of votes is an even number. In this case, it's an odd number. So what you could do is just add 1 to that and divide by 2. Add the votes, total votes plus 1 to make it an even number, and then divide by 2. So if you get 28 votes, then the next person could get at max 27, because there are 55 total. So if you have 28 votes, nobody can beat you. So that's the majority. The plurality method, you just ignore everything except for the first row. None of the rest of it makes any difference. Imagine that these voters were voting and they could just vote for one candidate. Well, they would vote for their first place person. So you only consider the first place votes for plurality. Just make sure that when you add up all 5 of your numbers there, they have to equal to 55, the total number of votes. Is in first place for those 12 votes. M has 18. G has 10. Sam Adams has 9. And then Budweiser gets both of these two, so the 4 and the 2, so 6. And for plurality only method, you stop there, and the beer with the most votes wins. So that's why Molson wins. This one's a little different because if you add 5 and 4 and 3 and 2 and 1 together, you get 15. 15 points are awarded to every single ballot. And there are 55 ballots. So if you take 55 and multiply that by 15, then 55 votes, yeah, 55 votes, 15 points awarded for each vote. That's going to be a total of 825 points. So when you add the total points of these 5 candidates, the sum of those should add up to the 825. That's how you know that you didn't make any arithmetic mistakes. Well, if you do it with this chart right here, every time someone gets a first place vote, they get 5 points for that. So there'd be 5 points for this first place vote, and there are 12 of them. 5 points for each one of these 18 votes. 5 points for each one of the 9 votes. 5 points for each one of the 10 votes, and so on. 5 points for each of the 4 votes, and 5 points for each of the 2 votes. You can go around this entire grid and do something like this. Another thing you could do is just kind of go right straight across. This one is ideal for, having the chart in this form is ideal for the board account, because Molson's going to get 5 points for this first place vote, and there are 18 of them. But for all of these, they were all ranked in last place. So the last place beer receives only 1 vote, or 1 point. So 1 point for each of those 12 votes, 1 point for each of those 10 votes, 1 point for each of those 9 votes, 1 point for each of the 4 votes, and 1 point for each of the 2 votes. And then all the points along this row here are all related to Molson. So you just multiply each pair of numbers and then add all 6 together. And if you had this table here, and let's say you wanted to find the total points for G, I'll just go down and identify all the G's. There's one. Guinness, for these 10 folks, they voted Guinness as their favorite. And when you receive a first place vote, you get 5 points. So Guinness gets 5 points times each of those 10 votes. If we go to the next row, you can see that second place votes, Guinness received 9 and 2 more. So Guinness received 11 votes. Those were second place votes. Second place votes get 4 points each. If you go down to the third place votes, well, G does not appear there. So if they get a third place vote, that's 3 points each, but there were no third place votes for G. 2 points for the number of fourth place votes, and G received 18 fourth place votes, and another 12 fourth place votes. That's 30 fourth place votes, and then over here another 4. So 34 fourth place votes, and fourth place votes receive 2 points each. And then finally, in the last row, there are no G's. And so 0 ballots would receive 1 point. Yeah, and then you just add all these together. 50, 44, 0, and 68. And when you add all those together, 162. I'm gonna pit Molson against everybody, because Molson doesn't look like Molson's gonna win it all. So I'll do Molson versus Bud, and Molson versus Sam Adams, and Molson versus Guinness, and Molson versus Killian's. I know for all of these, since Molson is down at the bottom, Molson is not going to win any of these ballots here. Molson is going to win these 18 every time. So it's going to be 18, 18, 18 for Molson, and 18, and the other beer, whatever it is going to get 37 points. So Bud gets 1, Sam Adams gets 1, Guinness gets 1, Killian gets 1. All right, so those are 4 of the 10 compositions. Let's go to the next beer then. So so maybe we'll just go with Killian's. Killian's versus Bud, Killian's versus Sam Adams, and Killian's versus Guinness. We don't have to do Killian's versus Molson because we already did that one here. And the next one would be Bud versus Sam Adams and Bud versus Guinness. And then finally, we're going to have Sam Adams versus Guinness. 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Those are your 10 competitions. Got to make sure that it's like a round robin. Everybody has to play everybody. Everybody has a competition with everybody. In every single competition, the number of votes have to add up to 55. That's your check. And remember how we award points. In any one competition, if there's an outright winner, like Bud's the winner here with 37 to 18, then Bud gets 1 point. What's interesting about this problem, since we have an odd number of votes, there's never going to be a tie, because to be a tie, you'd have to have the same number. And since 55 is an odd number, you'll never break it up into the sum of 2 equal whole numbers and get 55. So if Molson is going against Bud, so who wins these 18 votes? Well, Molson is ranked more highly than Bud. Bud's down here. So Molson's going to get these 18 votes. Now you go to the next column and say, who's going to get these 12 votes? Well, if the competition is between Molson and Bud, you come down here, and the first one you see between Bud and Molson, that's who's going to receive those 12 votes. Since Bud is ranked more highly for these 12 individuals, then Bud gets those 12 here. Go to the next column. Who's ranked more highly? Well, the reason it was easy is because Molson appears down here at the bottom. It's like the 5th choice of everybody except those folks who voted this way. So Molson is ranked 1 here. So Molson's always going to get those 18. But if you compare it to Bud, Bud's going to be higher than Molson here, 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 and here. So Bud gets all of these: 12, 10, 9, 4, and 2. And all of those add up to the 37. It's the same case if Molson goes against Sam Adams. Molson's going to get those 18, but then Sam Adams is higher than Molson in the 2nd column. Sam Adams is higher than Molson in the 3rd column. Sam Adams is higher than Molson in the 4th, and the 5th, and the 6th. So Sam Adams is higher than Molson, so gets all of these votes, except for the 18, because Molson gets those. And the only reason I wrote 18, 18, 18, 18, 18 is because I noticed that Molson was in 1st, so they were definitely going to get these 18 every single time. And they were in last, so they weren't going to get these votes every single time. They're going to lose every time. So they're 0 for 4. Killian just wins once, so it must be that Killian's beats Molson, and that's it. Guinness probably beats Molson and Killian's, so they have 2 points. Bud beats everybody, and Sam Adams beats everybody except Bud. Is probably how this all works out. What's interesting is to look at Bud versus Sam Adams. When you have Bud versus Sam Adams, it's a very close race. Bud gets 28 and Sam Adams gets 27. And that's the difference between who wins with the paired comparison. So this is an interesting example because of the 4 methods, a different beer wins every single one. Something like that when you're done. A couple of close competitions here. But in every case, the 2 add up to 55.